So here is the card for WrestleMania 39 at SoFi Stadium. I am doing these predictions before the Go Home Raw, so just keep that in mind. Bray Wyatt against Bobby Lashley looks to be off. Whatever health issue Bray is said to be dealing with, he has not been on television all month. And there's no point in even bothering with the match. Even if he was able to come back tomorrow night, I don't see the point in even bothering with this. That leaves Bobby Lashley without an opponent. And instead, Triple H has thrown Lashley into the Andre the Giant Memorial Battle Royal on SmackDown this Friday, which is total crap. But they can use it as a way to set up his match for WrestleMania, which is why I am predicting that Bobby Lashley goes on a tear in the Battle Royal. He dumps out a whole bunch of people before LA Knight eliminates Bobby Lashley. Lashley, none too happy about that. Knight then gets eliminated himself. And Bronson Reed is my pick to win this year's Andre Battle Royal. Meanwhile, the challenge is issued for a match at WrestleMania with Lashley and LA Knight, which Lashley wins. And then after the match, Knight gets on the mic. He starts to run down the crowd. The glass shatters. Stone Cold Steve Austin marches, who has claimed in interviews, I haven't been contacted by WWE. I don't buy that for a second. Stone Cold marches down to the ring for a segment with LA Knight. We get the battle of the what chants and the yeah chants. It ends with Knight eating a stunner, Austin drinking beer, and everybody's happy. We have 2 WrestleMania showcase matches. One for the men, one for the women. They have not said either of these matches are for a shot at their respective tag team titles, but they should be. Let's assume they will be. We have the Street Profits versus the Viking Raiders versus Alpha Academy versus Braun Strowman and Ricochet. The only team in the match without a team name, and they're my pick to win. The women's showcase match has Ronda Rousey and Shayna Baszler, who just walked out on Friday and announced themselves for the match without qualifying because Ronda's hurt, but she's not hurt enough to be off the show. Liv Morgan and Raquel Rodriguez have qualified. Natty and Shotzi qualified the other night. And there is one final team to be determined. Carmella was missing from television this week. There was no mention of where she was. There were no reports out with any information about why she was missing. All of a sudden, Chelsea Green was tagging with Piper Niven on Monday night. If Carmella is back this week, I think she and Chelsea get the final spot in the showcase match. But it won't change the outcome. Ronda Rousey and Shayna Baszler pick up the win, which leads into Becky Lynch, Lita, and Trish Stratus taking on Damage Control, Bayley, Dakota Kai, and Io Sky. This is taking place on night 1, based on what Becky said in a recent interview. In that same interview, Becky said that she wants to defend the tag team titles on the show and wrestle both nights. She joked, I used to call me Becky 2 Belts, I want to be Becky 2 Nights. It did occur to me that there is an open spot left in that women's showcase match. And if they do that match on night 2, Becky and Lita could very well announce this week that we're going to put our titles on the line in the 4-way match on night 2. That is a possibility. But I'm going to go with this idea. Becky, Lita, and Trish beat Damage Control on night 1. There's some sort of miscue during the match with Trish, Becky, and Lita. They still win it. Trish is not happy, but, whatever, they won the match. And they announced that they're going to defend their titles on Sunday against Ronda and Shayna after their showcase win earlier in the night, right? So let's say Ronda and Shayna go on night 1 in their match, they win. Becky, Lita, and Trish, they have their match on night 1, they win. And then Becky and Lita say, we're going to defend our titles against Ronda and Shayna. Or maybe Ronda and Shayna come out after the trios match and they say, look, we want to challenge you tomorrow at night 2 of WrestleMania. However they get to it, they do a tag team title match on night 2. Ronda and Shayna win the titles when Trish costs Becky and Lita the match. Trish Stratus goes heel, which leads to a program with Trish and Becky Lynch. We have Brock Lesnar, one-on-one with Omos. This is the least important, least exciting of all the Brock Lesnar matches since he came back over a decade ago. Right? Brock's had a bunch of matches with Roman Reigns. He wrestled Goldberg. They actually had their best match at WrestleMania back in 2017. Seth Rollins, Drew McIntyre. I mean, that wasn't great because, it was COVID. It was in an empty warehouse. But all these big opponents, right, that he's been in the ring with, and now he wrestles Omos. This will not go long. This should not go long. And the outcome may hinge on Brock's contract status. If he is taking his usual post-WrestleMania sabbatical, and he's going to be back in a few months, he'll be back in time for, Money in the Bank and SummerSlam, then Brock wins. If he really is done for the foreseeable future, and there are people who think that this is it, but I feel like we hear this every year. At the end of every contract, this could be it. Brock Lesnar has enough money. He doesn't have to work anymore if he doesn't want to. Yeah, of course, he doesn't have to work anymore, but you wave a bunch of money in his face. Why not? For the schedule he has? I mean, he could do this until he's 50 if he wants to. So, again, if Brock is going to be back in a matter of months, then Brock wins. If he really is done, if Vince McMahon asked him to put the big guy over because Brock apparently loves Vince and he'll do whatever he asks of him, within reason, and Vince was involved in some way, even if he just suggested it, in making this match happen, not a doubt in my mind, then Brock will do the job on his way out. Brock Lesnar has not won a WrestleMania match in 5 years. He lost to Roman last year. He lost to Drew McIntyre in 2020. He lost to Seth Rollins the year before that. He's got a reverse streak going. He's at the tail end, it feels like, of his career, so it would not be surprising to see him lose again. All that being said, I think Brock is going to win. We have a triple threat match. For the Intercontinental Championship, Gunther defends against Drew McIntyre and Sheamus. I will make the call right now. This will be the greatest Intercontinental title match at WrestleMania since at least 2015, but I'll do even better. This is going to be the greatest Intercontinental title match at WrestleMania since 1994. Since the ladder match at Madison Square Garden between Shawn and Razor. Gunther is coming up on 1 full year on the main roster and has yet to be pinned. He is also nearing 300 days as champion. He just passed Mr. Perfect's second run from the end of 1990 through his SummerSlam 91 Classic with Bret Hart. The longest reigning Intercontinental Champion in 36 years. Despite my fears and Vince McMahon leaving when he did, however temporary it may have been, that had a lot to do with it. I mean, look, even when Vince was still running creative, Walter was doing pretty well. But do you honestly believe it would have lasted, that he would have had the run that he's been on if Vince was still the head of creative? Because I don't. I don't think that's very likely at all. Walter's run on the main roster has been a huge success. I personally don't care about him breaking the Honky Tonk Man's record. If he was to break the Honky Tonk Man's record, great. But this idea that you got to keep the title on him because he's got to pass the Honky Tonk Man, that would take him all the way through September, I believe, to break it. By September, this man should be a world champion. And in order for that to happen, he needs to first lose the Intercontinental title. This being a triple threat presents the perfect scenario for him to lose because he doesn't have to be pinned. They can preserve his record of not being pinned or made to submit by having Sheamus pin Drew McIntyre to win the championship. And that then would pave the way for Gunther to either win the Universal title. If Cody wins both belts and they split them, I think Cody would hold on to the WWE title. They would crown a new Universal champion. And that man should be Gunther. If they don't split them, he should win King of the Ring. And no later than summertime, he should have the top title. For Sheamus, this is his moment. After almost 15 years on the main roster, holding every other major accolade there is to hold, Universal title aside, the WWE Championship, the World Heavyweight Championship, the US title, Tag Team titles, Royal Rumble winner, Money in the Bank winner, King of the Ring winner, but he has never been Intercontinental Champion before. And he wants it. Like a lot of us, he grew up a fan watching the likes of Randy Savage and Mr. Perfect and Bret Hart and Shawn Michaels holding that title, and it's the one that he wants more than anything else. He and Gunther had what would have been the match of the year were it not for the trilogy with FTR and the Briscoes last year. Clash at the Castle, they had just an amazing match. They had a rematch on TV for that title that Gunther won, but not without some controversy, if you remember what happened in that match. I have been waiting for them to come back to it, and I was hoping they would do it at WrestleMania. Adding McIntyre to the mix only makes for an even better match. But this is Sheamus' moment, and I hope they give it to him. Edge takes on Finn Balor inside Hell in a Cell. The first Hell in a Cell match at WrestleMania since Undertaker and Shane McMahon in 2016. Edge wrestled Seth Rollins in an excellent Hell in a Cell match at Crown Jewel a couple of years ago. I'm hoping he can recapture some of that magic here. Last Monday, Edge, or at least a floating Edgehead, again, that was a very bizarre promo, but Edge told Balor to bring the demon. So if Edge goes dark, maybe he brings back the Brood entrance again, like he did at SummerSlam a couple of years ago. Maybe he even brings along an old friend. You have to think Balor is going to have Damian Priest with him since Priest has no match. Edge has been feuding with the Judgment Day for a year now. It is time to end this once and for all. That is what Hell in a Cell should be for. It should be for blowing off a feud. Edge and Beth Phoenix beat Balor and Rhea Ripley at Elimination Chamber. Finn Balor is going to win this match, especially if he's got the body paint. The last time we saw him with the paint on, it did not end well. It was such an embarrassing finish, the Demon has not been seen since. Balor needs this win way more than Edge does, and so he walks out with the victory. For the Raw Women's Championship, Bianca Belair defends against Asuka. This is the most disappointing of all the matches on this show as far as the build. Very, very lackluster build for this match. Everything that they have done has just been a thumbs down. And it's a very paint-by-numbers thing where, Asuka comes out, she's trying to play mind games, they look up and they point at the WrestleMania sign. They were tag team partners on television the other night. Can they coexist? I mean, and what they're doing, it's just lame. So I think they'll go out there and have, a good match. They certainly have it in them. But this is the match I'm most disappointed in coming into this show. Bianca is going to hit the 1-year mark as champion this weekend. I don't think she's losing. I think Bianca Belair is going to retain the Raw Women's title, but I do see a heel turn in her future. And I think it's the right move. Seth Rollins goes one-on-one with Logan Paul. This is taking place on night 1, since Logan has said that he's wrestling on his birthday, which is April 1st. I have high expectations for this. I think these two are going to work great together. I think they're going to tear it up. Seth is one of the opponents. Actually, I think it was him and Orton. I was talking about the two of them as potential opponents for Logan Paul going back probably 4 months, I think it was. I didn't think it would be Orton because I knew about the back injury, but I thought Seth Rollins would be a very good match for him. And now we see heel Logan Paul coming out and healing it up on television, which is the right role for him to be in. But say what you want to about the guy, whether you like him or not. His body of work is not large, but his body of work so far speaks for itself. He was one of the rookies of the year last year. Some might say the rookie of the year. He went in there with Roman Reigns, the top star in the company, in the main event of a pay-per-view, and had an excellent match. So if he's in there with somebody like Seth Rollins, and we know what Rollins can do, then I think we're in for a special match. But Seth Rollins is going to walk out with a win. I don't see him losing to Logan Paul. Also on night 1, opening night 1, in fact, Austin Theory defends the United States Championship against his idol, John Cena. Theory in interviews before has been very open about how big of a John Cena fan he was when he was younger. So for him, I'm sure it's a thrill to be working a title match with him at WrestleMania. Is there the possibility that John Cena could win this match? There's always the possibility, of course. If the title was not on the line, I think there would be even more of a possibility. With the U.S. title being on the line, I think it makes it a lot less likely. But is it possible that John Cena could win, do his U.S. Open challenge on Raw Monday night, and they debut a big name like a Jay White or somebody who comes out and beats him for the belt, and then Cena goes away? Sure. I talked about that a few weeks ago, but Austin Theory is the guy that they're pushing right now. And I think that giving him a big WrestleMania win over John Cena is the only way to go here. He's the United States champion. The way that John Cena came out, and this is the biggest reason why I think Austin Theory is winning this match. When we saw the two of them in the ring face-to-face for the first time, all those weeks ago, John Cena buried this kid 6 feet under. He absolutely lit him up. He said every damaging thing you could possibly say to a man who is a champion, the de facto top champion right now on Monday nights, since Roman Reigns is an absentee champion on Raw. He's the United States champion. John Cena coming out saying nobody cares about you. The biggest knock on you is that nobody cares. They don't care. They don't react to you. So he said nobody cares about you. You got no balls. You got no brains. You got no heart. You don't belong. You're in over your head. And he's saying all these things about him. And the only way out for Austin Theory is to prove him wrong and beat him and win. Because if he goes in there and loses, all he does is prove that everything John Cena said about him in that promo was true. And that would be terrible for Austin Theory. Austin Theory has to win this match. And he's going to win this match. John Cena's coming in, he's going to do the honors, and he's going to go right back out. In fact, that could be why he's opening the show. He may have to be on a movie set that night. Who knows? But Austin Theory is going to retain the United States Championship. Rey Mysterio is going to have a big weekend. First on Friday, he's going to be headlining this year's Hall of Fame class, and then he wrestles his son for the very first time, something he has been saying for months that he would not do under any circumstances. He had a change of heart on Friday when Dominic disrespected his mother, Rey's wife, and Rey finally knocked him on his ass. What a glorious reaction it got. That is the payoff that you get when you build something up for a long period of time like that. Honestly, it's the best built story in the company outside of the Bloodline, is the Rey and Dominic stuff. Dominic Mysterio is going to win this match. Rey Mysterio is not going to go in there and beat his son. Dominic is going to win. And how Dominic wins? Well, look, Dominic's a heel, right? He's a chicken shit heel. You saw the look of fear in his eyes when he got knocked down by his dad on Friday. I thought he sold it great. Could he cheat? Could Rhea Ripley be out there with him? I mean, I guess a lot of that depends on whether or not Dominic and Rey go on night 1 or night 2. You know, if Rhea is wrestling on a separate night, Rhea could be in his corner. Damian Priest could be in his corner, and they could interfere, and they can try to help him win the match. Dominic could cheat in other ways. Or they could go a totally different way with it and have a straight match. And have a finish very similar to the fluky way that Owen Hart beat Bret at WrestleMania 10, which, again, I've compared these two stories before. One was brothers. This one is father and son, but it's very similar, where Bret spent a few months saying, I will not fight my brother under any circumstances, until finally he did. Rey has spent many months saying, I will not fight my son, until finally now he's going to fight his son. So there's different similarities here, and one similarity could be in the finish. Owen beat Bret on, Bret went for a victory roll, Owen fell forward, and he pinned his brother. And Bret couldn't believe it. It was a very fluky finish, but Owen beat Bret. I could see a very similar finish here. I'm not saying the victory roll finish, but Dominic beats his father fair and square. He pins him in the ring on a fluky finish. Rey can't believe it, and Dominic just got the biggest win of his life. I just can't see Rey going in there, even though story-wise it would make sense for all the abuse and all the shit that he's taken now for the last 6 months. He gets his revenge by beating his son. I don't think Rey's interested in that. Rey's entire goal here was to help his son and get his son over. You think Rey Mysterio gives a shit about going in there and winning? I mean, if Triple H says, look, we want you to win, we have a long-term plan here for this, then he'll win. But I think Dominic gets the win. I think Dominic wins, and then in Puerto Rico at Backlash in May, we get Rey and a partner, either Santos Escobar or Bad Bunny. If Bad Bunny is actually wrestling on the show, he may not be. But Rey and a partner against Dominic and Damian Priest, I think, is the match that you then set up for in Puerto Rico, and you could have Rey and his partner win that match. But I think Dominic is winning here. This right here is one of the matches I am most looking forward to all weekend. I'm looking forward a lot to the main event on night 2. I'm looking forward to the tag team title match. But I'm looking forward to this match more than most of the other matches on this card. We have Charlotte Flair defending the SmackDown Women's Championship against Rhea Ripley in a rematch from WrestleMania 36. There were no fans in attendance, but they had an excellent match. That was 3 years ago. This is a very different Rhea Ripley. Not much has changed about Charlotte Flair. She's still on top of the world in a title match at WrestleMania. But Rhea Ripley, this is a very different Rhea Ripley. Since she joined the Judgment Day, she's really come into her own. And this is a story, it's kind of, the logic and the psychology here is kind of ass backwards. Because Charlotte is the queen. she's on top of the mountain. She comes out every week and she builds herself up and she talks about all of her accomplishments. She points out the fact 7 years in a row, I've always been in a title match at WrestleMania since the day I debuted, which is true. The other night, she's healing on the fans. Are you whatting me? You people better shut up and listen to what I have to say. I mean, you would think if you didn't know any better, that this woman is the heel going into this match. Rhea Ripley is the one who keeps talking about the fact that, yeah, you beat me 3 years ago. And I have to beat you now. I have to prove to you that you will fear me. This is like a redemption arc for Rhea. Even though Rhea is technically the heel going into the match, Rhea Ripley is going to walk out of here as the new SmackDown Women's Champion. Any other outcome to this match would be a disgrace. It would be booking malpractice. Charlotte Flair cannot beat Rhea Ripley on this show. That would be just an absolutely brain-dead dumb decision. This is Rhea's moment. Charlotte loses nothing by dropping the championship. The championship that she won her first night back after 8 months off. She walks in, wins the title. In what was it, 60 seconds, if even that. Even the way they put the title on her was ridiculous. She cashed in her Charlotte in the bank. Here, this is a Rhea Ripley win in this match. The talk is that it's going to headline night 1 of WrestleMania. I know Rhea Ripley won the Royal Rumble. Typically, I would say yes, the winner of the Royal Rumble should be in the genuine main event. Main event of WrestleMania means you close the show. In this case, this match should not headline night 1. This match should not headline night 1 if the tag team title match is taking place on the same night. We don't know that it is. But if the tag team title match is happening on night 1, that is what should headline the show. But it's still up in the air as far as what that final match is going to be. The build up to this match has, like the women's title match on Raw, it's been lacking. It's been only marginally better than Bianca and Asuka. I mean, I don't know what Triple H has been doing as far as the build to all these women's matches on this show, but there's been something lacking in every single one of them. Right? There's going to be 4 of them. The women's showcase, the trios match, the 2 women's title matches, every single one of them. Not one of these matches you could honestly look at and go, man, this has been a really exciting build to this match. No, it hasn't. No, it hasn't. You're lying to yourself if you think otherwise. But Charlotte and Rhea did go out there in front of no people in 2020, and they had a kick-ass match. I think in front of a big crowd like this, this is the match they wanted to have in Tampa a few years ago, that they didn't get to have. So, in a way, it's kind of like Brock and Goldberg going out there in 2017. I'm sure that in the back of their mind, or maybe it was in the front of their mind, because, I know both of them were unhappy with how that match went in 2004. When they got booed out of the building, the crowd shat all over them. They knew both of them were leaving at WrestleMania 20. They had a terrible match. And so they were able to go out there at WrestleMania 33 and kind of wipe the slate clean, make people forget about that match. And, they had a very good match at WrestleMania 33. And so in kind of a roundabout way, not that their match was bad with Charlotte and Rhea, but that wasn't the match they wanted to have. That wasn't the match that they want people to remember. This is going to be the match that they were hoping to have back then. I think it'll be a very good match, but Rhea Ripley has to win this match. She will be the new SmackDown Women's Champion. Now, I mentioned the tag team titles. You have the Usos, over 600 days as the SmackDown Tag Team Champions, now the Unified Tag Team Champions, put those unified titles on the line against the team of Kevin Owens and Sami Zayn. The 2 former best friends back together. This storyline has been playing out over a period of many, many months. Through War Games and the Royal Rumble, Elimination Chamber in Montreal, it has built to this moment. They had the reunion on SmackDown a few weeks ago, the big hug. Yeah, one thing Triple H has done a very good job of with the Bloodline stuff, and I mentioned Rey and Dom, when they build to these big moments, man, they're getting these big pops. Whether it was Sami hitting Roman in the back with a chair at the Royal Rumble, which got a ridiculous reaction. Sami and KO just sharing a hug on TV a few weeks ago. Rey punching his son in the face. We've had a lot of big moments like that. And so now, these 2 have come together. They're going to try to take down the Bloodline together and do what they could not do on their own. That's the story going into this match. Sami Zayn was not successful in winning gold at Elimination Chamber. That will change at WrestleMania, and for the very first time in all the years they've spent together in WWE, these two are going to be tag team champions. The only question is, do they headline night 1, or do they open night 2? I've considered both. I mean, I think it could go either way, honestly. It really depends on whether or not they want to make night 2 all about the bloodline. Because you could open night 2 with the tag team title match. Owens and Zayn win the belts. Roman Reigns is angry. He's paranoid now for the rest of the night, leading into his match with Cody. I could definitely see that. I think there's an argument to be made for both. But if this match is happening on WrestleMania Saturday, this right here deserves the final spot. This deserves to close the show. You give these guys the big celebration. You can drop confetti if you want to. Give them pyro. Because this is the story that has been built up over many, many months. People are invested in this story way more than they are the Charlotte and Rhea stuff. And so this deserves, I think, the main event spot. But wherever it goes, this is one of the matches I am most looking forward to on this show. Owens and Zayn are going to be the new tag team champions, and it's going to create more cracks and more drama in the ranks of the bloodline as a result. Which leads us into the main event. The main event of night 2. The main event of the weekend. Roman Reigns, by Showtime, nearly 950 days as the undisputed WWE Universal Champion, defends that unified title against the winner of the Royal Rumble, the Comeback Kid, the former AEW EVP, the American Nightmare, Cody Rhodes. Roman Reigns has been champion for so long that the last man to hold the Universal title was Bray Wyatt, a man who, in the time since, has been fired and rehired by the company. In fact, Braun Strowman was actually the one who Roman pinned to win the title. He also was fired and rehired in that same period of time. We have not seen a title run like this since Hulk Hogan, the first time he won the title back in the 80s. When Hogan was in the middle of that run, that's when I first started watching wrestling. That's how far back you'd have to go. It is a legendary run that he is on right now, and I know it must be very tempting to be this close to 1,000 days to let him reach that goal. But this should not be about fictitious records anymore. He's already smashed a whole bunch of different ones. He's not breaking Hogan's run. He's not breaking Backlund's run. He's not breaking Bruno's run. Nobody is. He's already got the longest run in almost 40 years. Has not been pinned since 2019. So that's cool. But what is the outcome that makes the most sense? What is the best outcome for business? And that's where it gets tough. This is a tough one. It's not an easy choice to make. There are pros and cons to both. For Cody, he's got the comeback story. Came back after 7 years away. Reinvented himself. Got himself over. Like Roman said the other week, he wasn't over when he left. When he came back, he was. He beat Seth Rollins 3 straight times. He wrestled a Hell in a Cell match with his pec muscle hanging off. It was a gutsy performance. Cody became a made man that night. And then he got the redemption story like Triple H did after he tore his quad the first time. Triple H came back at Madison Square Garden to one of the loudest reactions you'll ever hear. He won the Royal Rumble match. He won the undisputed title at WrestleMania. But that Chris Jericho that he beat was not this Roman Reigns. That Chris Jericho was not the guy. He was never the guy. He was never treated like the guy. Chris Jericho was an afterthought in his own story building up to WrestleMania 18. The story was not Triple H against Chris Jericho. The story was Triple H against Stephanie McMahon, featuring Chris Jericho and Lucy the dog. So that was very different. Roman Reigns is the guy. He's untouchable right now. He does all the little things so well. He and Heyman as a pairing, they've been great together. He looks the part, he acts the part, and he is the centerpiece of the greatest storyline this company has produced in decades. A storyline that still has more chapters left to be told. It's not over yet. It doesn't end at WrestleMania. But just because he loses the titles does not mean the end of the Bloodline story. In fact, I would argue his losing those titles is what is needed to advance to the next chapter of the story and keep it going. The story coming out of WrestleMania could be Roman's descent into madness, especially if the other members of the Bloodline desert him. They've had enough of his shit. especially Jey Uso, who this entire bloodline story has been built around from day one. I said it was never the Sami Zayn story. It's been the Jey Uso story. It all comes back to Jey and Roman's treatment of his cousin. How poetic would it be if those same family members turned their backs on him, if Roman comes into the show with everything and he leaves with nothing? How does he recover from that? What does it mean for his relationship with Jey going forward? WrestleVotes says that Roman is planning a significant break after WrestleMania, so much so that he could miss television all the way up to SummerSlam. But there's a very important caveat to that. This is said to be contingent on when he eventually loses the titles, which to me is not news. I think we all kind of figured that eventually when Roman drops the belts, he's probably going to go away for a while. But that does not mean that he's losing them at WrestleMania. It just means that whenever he does lose them, whether it's WrestleMania, whether it's SummerSlam, he will have an extended break after that. Right now, the report says that plan is not certain. It would seem to me that if Triple H is still unsure of who's winning such a big match like this, 10 days out, or whatever it was when this report first came out, if he still hasn't circled the wagons around Cody Rhodes, then maybe Cody is not his guy. But I don't buy it. I think the decision has already been made, and they're staying very tight-lipped about it. I mean, look, if they're going around to different state commissions, making the case for how secret they can keep things if they want to get approval for betting on their matches, they need to set an example that they can keep these things under wraps. And by the way, I don't think that gambling shit is going anywhere. But that doesn't mean that they're not still going to try. I think Triple H already knows who the champion is going to be coming out of WrestleMania. I think he's made his decision. If he's already planning out his stories long-term coming out of the show, then he has to know who his champion is going to be. And I think that man is going to be Cody Rhodes. Cody is over. He is said to be hitting top-tier main eventer levels with his merch sales. They were never going to build their company around Sami Zayn or Jey Uso. I mean, sure, you could give them their moment. If they beat Roman for the belts, what a great moment it would have been for Sami in Montreal. What a great moment it would be for Jey Uso at SummerSlam at Ford Field to be the one to take down Roman Reigns. The person who finally beats Roman after a run like this should be the next in line to take the baton and run with it, and I believe that man is Cody Rhodes. Now, beating Cody, it wouldn't kill him. I don't think he would be lugered unless he wins by countout and celebrates with balloons like a dunce. But I do think that it would take a lot of the wind out of his sails. I don't agree with having him come out at number 30 in the Royal Rumble. They should have made him fight for it a little bit more. But he stood in that ring a year ago, and he told the story of his father and the title that was taken away from him and what it would mean to his family to be the one to finally win it. Here we are 1 year later, and the time is right for Cody to finish the story. You know, looking beyond WrestleMania, there's a few different people that Cody could feud with for the title. Randy Orton is going to be in Los Angeles this weekend. Doesn't mean he's going to be on the show or he's going to do a run-in. But just the fact that he'll be there could be a sign that he's on his way back soon. And there's history there with Orton and Cody from their days together in Legacy. There's Seth Rollins if they wanted to revisit that. There's Bobby Lashley. There's Gunther. If Roman wins, he would become the first heel to close out 3 straight WrestleManias with a win, which is something that's never happened before. I don't think it happens now. I think the Bloodline gets involved or tries to get involved, but Sami and KO, they're going to be right there to fend them off. I could even see Paul Heyman getting involved, and Brandy shows up and knocks him on his ass. Roman's going to have to do it in the end all on his own. In the end, Cody takes down the Tribal Chief. He gets the big emotional celebration to close out the show. Now, I say this with the full understanding that WWE supposedly offered Stone Cold Steve Austin many months ago a match with Roman Reigns at WrestleMania. And Austin turned it down. And they tried to get The Rock for a match with Roman Reigns, and The Rock turned it down. In both of those scenarios, there's no way Roman would have lost, which means they were already planning on a Roman Reigns victory at WrestleMania. So it is by no means a slam dunk that Cody Rhodes is going to win and that they're ready to beat Roman. But unlike Rock and Austin, Cody can be their next guy when Roman takes time off. When those matches were pitched, Cody Rhodes was not in the position that he is in now. It's going to be a couple of late nights this weekend coming up, and I'm going to be live on YouTube to cover it all when the shows are over, and I hope you'll be there too.